Well, bam, I'm hanging with Danny from Second Time Around Watch Company. What up, Danny?
What up, D?
I'm in LA, Trick. What is going on? Welcome back to this hobby of ours. I have once again absconded with one of John's employees. This is Danny from Second Time Around Watch Company.
How's it going?
What's going on, big man?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I'd love to take a ride around.
I appreciate you making the time, John making the time.
Of course.
Because I do love to do some watch yapping.
Sure.
We are kicking it around Beverly Hills today.
Yes.
Trying to avoid wrecking into Prius drivers, because you know Prius drivers, right?
There's a lot of potential problems.
Legit. Well, at least I'll have video footage of what I'm doing. Anywho, I remember Danny as being a part of the Second Time Around Watch Company family way before I even got to know John, because I used to live out here. I would pop in the store, and I just remember you from back in the day. Great service, friendly service there.
Sure.
And what you saw in the intro was a very unique Porsche design new old stock watch that John has got in stock right now, and I didn't want to size that bracelet to wear it. I'm wearing my travel watch, Seiko Alpinist GMT, but also Danny has got on another fabulous piece that's in the shop.
Yeah, I have a heuer Carrera. Sorry for overstepping on you. I've got a heuer Carrera. It's a, what is it, a 7753 reference number, original reverse Panda dial. Yep.
Yeah, I'll pop in. I'll grab a photo off the website and I'll drop it in.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's available now.
Love
yeah,
that piece.
60 Zera piece. Yeah, and then you had the Orfina Porsche design.
With a kind of a prototype dial. I mean,
yes.
The channel knows I love me some Porsche design. Don't let the shirt fool you. Absolutely love it.
Yes, I noticed that immediately when you came in, and I was like, we just got one of these. But yeah, it's we have that. That's a 80
channel
Zera
darling.
Yes, it's an 80 Zera PVD coated Orfina Porsche design piece. Sometimes colloquially referred to as the Top Gun watch.
Yeah.
However, this has a little bit of a different dial configuration, and it has, as you were saying,
the Lamania.
Yeah, the Lamania 5100.
Yeah,
that everybody likes, and which was in a ton of other really.
I think it was in one of the Beverly Hills cop movies, the one with Bridget Nielsen. I think she wore that.
Oh, okay. For sure.
Yeah, but this model is the Lamania, and so it is not. The Top Gun watch actually has the Valjoux.
Oh, okay.
But this one is in such immaculate condition. It's like it's stepped out of the Orfina factory.
Yes, I know.
Yesterday.
Yes, absolutely.
So those are going to be direct links in this video. Check those out.
Thank you. Yeah, come on.
If you are in the market.
Yeah, come on by to see them in the store.
Pop in the store.
Yeah, totally.
Plus, you guys ship.
Yes.
And
all over the place.
International.
Most things are like getting shipped out these days. So many people pour over our website. We have like 10, 12, 14 images of the watches. We open up the case backs, show everybody the movements, and just beautiful large images.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
So how did you, going back into a little bit of your backstory, how did you get connected with John in the store?
Sure.
You've been there off and on throughout your career, and so just lay it down, man.
Absolutely. So I've been there since 2014, and yeah, off and on. I'll take sort of moments of sabbatical because I also run an art gallery, but we can get into that more later. Yeah. But so yeah, I got there in 2014. I was hired initially as the person who would shoot all the photos and logistics.
Social media stuff.
Yeah, social media stuff, and then just like images for the store. John, for the longest time, was just the only. It was like a one-man drummer or a one-man band. Yeah, one-man band, and he was doing everything. He was doing photos. He was doing shipping.
What?
He was doing sales. So
No
and he was doing that for years and years and years. And so I had a friend named Spencer who also worked at the store. We went to college together, and he did sales, and they needed somebody to sort of fill out the company. So I went to UCLA for visual arts and focused on photo and darkroom printing. And so I was already doing photo after getting out of school for myself, and then also for other companies for like product imagery and stuff like this. And then of course when you get into like a store capacity like that, everybody learns how to do everything. So
yeah, you
have
got to be like
yeah.
a jack of all trades
Yes.
type.
So I immediately, you get kind of thrown into the pit, and you need to know how to talk about every watch in the store. Because you touch everything and you photograph everything. You kind of by just muscle memory, every reference number, every year, the prices, what kind of, who, you bought the watch from or where you got it from, so you just know this, all the provenance.
I need a database for that.
Yeah, so.
I'm a little longer in the tooth than you, though.
So yeah, I kind of got obsessed with watches over the course of time. I mean, I when I was young, I had Swatches and I had Casios and all these sort of like beginner pieces.
What was your first important watch? The first watch that was important to you, whether it was a big spend item because you were commemorating a graduation or something like that, or from your dad or whomever. Mm-hmm. What was that for you?
Yes, I think it was a watch that it was probably the first watch I bought at the store that then I was able to trade for another watch. So being that like I got a really regular Hamilton. I think it's I think they call them the W10 military pieces, black dial, white numerals. Very classic piece, smaller. Yeah. I have smaller wrists, so I've always been a fan of the 30s, 40s, 50s.
Well, that Heuer fits your properly.
The Heuer is okay. Yeah, I think it's a 35 or a 36. So I got a Hamilton for maybe all of $100. Somebody else came into the store one day, probably 2 years into me working there, and they had a Dirty Dozen military JLC.
The JLC Dirty Dozen?
Yes, but the movement wasn't working. It was pretty rough for wear, high mileage on it, and they didn't want that much for it. And I talked to John, and we, with some money and with the trade of the Hamilton, I got the JLC.
Do you still have it?
I do not have it anymore.
What?
Yeah, I don't have it anymore.
Get out!
I was poking around online, and I somewhat have the pang of regret. But I think every
you can have it back for $8,000.
Yes, there's that is a pretty intense.
Why'd you get rid of it?
I got rid of it. It was for a good reason, so that's what I was going to say. I think that for every watch that you either trade or sell, I think it goes to something else that as a part of the trajectory of your.
I'm
of your
dying
watch
to
career.
hear where it went.
Yeah. So, anyways, I sold it for a good amount of money, and I used that to pay for the build out of my first permanent gallery space.
Oh, okay,
which
that's acceptable. You can stay in the car. You don't have to walk home.
Yes. Although now I feel like you could have built 3 other galleries. It was a space that was that it still is behind the house that I live in. That's a sort of a mother-in-law suite that we redid all the electricity. We re-drywalled, we re-redwooded and dropped a skylight into the ceiling. And so with that,
and built it out.
We did a full build out with a good friend of mine who just charged me for materials and a little bit of time. So the fact that I got that maybe 2 or 3 years into my watch journey, and then that was able to
that's pretty cool.
It helped me survive in another way and supplement other passions I have. I'm very passionate about watches, but I'm also very passionate having gone to UCLA. And,
so is the gallery side of what you're into, is it, because you mentioned you're into photography, is it photography gallery stuff, or is it like art, painting?
It's really crazy, funky painting and sculpture. So I went to UCLA, which was like a school where you might be able to call it, it's like they really champion post-contemporary art, which just means the craziest stuff, the most like theoretical stuff. So photo was something that I like to do myself and was very obsessed with the technical capacities, but I never really liked showing photo or so I show painting and whatnot. No, I would say the connection between the two of art and watches for me is just the information available and the histories available that you can become obsessed with. These brands
you're gonna send me a link to your gallery.
Sure,
I'll
absolutely.
put it into the description. But please continue.
That'd be great. But when you champion an artist who's working, and a lot of them are my contemporaries, they're like my age and whatnot. But some of them are mid-career and in their 80s and 90s. So you kind of got obsessed with people's careers and their trajectory. trajectories and where they've shown, and all this kind of information. And that kind of happens as well when you start looking into watches like Omegas and Rolexes and Heuers. And I just started getting obsessed with histories and how those histories could align with, like, I don't know, the history of the world at that time, or the history of America at that time. And so military watches is definitely in that. You can start to think about, why were people making these watches at this time, or what were technological advancements at that time.
I don't bond with brand new watches that I buy, and I don't officially know why. But I can get my head spun around the notion of, like, especially with that JLC Dirty Dozen.
Right.
I know those watches very well.
Right.
I have a few. I've got the Omega. I've got the Vertex.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I contemplated trying to complete the set.
Oof, yeah.
But between the price point on that, the Longines, the IWC,
right,
and the Grana, which you can't find because it was the least.
Yes.
It was the least produced
right.
of them.
Yes.
I think as low as 2,500. I was like, oh man, maybe I don't need that, but. And actually, a lot of those watches were delivered after the war.
Right,
to be fair, but
maybe
they've
didn't
still
see action.
they've still been around for 76 years by now.
Sure.
Who had it? Who wore it?
Oh yes.
All of the used watches. I could just sit there and Walter Mitty the day away, wondering where those watches were, which is, I think, is what you were kind of hinting towards.
Yes, absolutely. And just like how, even just technological advancement kinds of things. When was your like first automatic chronograph, and like how that aligns with time, and watches are quite interesting, and I get obsessed about the history and the numbers and the design. Of pieces. But to double back on what you're saying, we actually have an IWC and a Longines Dirty Dozen examples that are going to come through the store.
I saw that
in a little bit. I don't know if he showed you; those are sneak peeks.
I saw the Instagram sneak peek, and I'm like, John, I might need to make a purchase.
Yes, the IWCs and definitely the Longines. I think they had low production counts, but yes, you're right. The Grana, I think I've seen on different websites for $40,000. And
what?
Yeah, because there was only 1,000 or 2,500.
No, it's in a book that I have at home, and I'll pop it up on screen because the book is this book of British military watches.
Oh,
it's
I love
3 inches thick, fabulous book, but it breaks down all the productions of that. I've never seen the Grana for sale.
Right.
Period. They've got the ones that they made for the other side, the Axis versions.
Right. Okay.
That show up, and those ones have a serial number starting with D.
Okay.
That's how you can tell it from.
Interesting.
If you see the Grana for $400, it's not the Dirty Dozen one. It's the German one.
Yes.
But the IWC, JLC, Longines. Those ones are the ones that are hardest to get, and they usually pop for a pretty penny.
Sure.
But if you like it, go ask John for the Fred price.
Yes,
maybe he'll sort you out on it. In terms of I always I love asking this question of watch people who work at watch stores. The fact that you have access to this incredible vault store of watches means you can come into work one day, be like, hey John, can I wear this today? He's probably gonna say yeah, you can wear it.
Oh sure.
While you're working with customers or whatever. Like, does it abate your need to fill your personal watch box with your own watches? Like, does it help?
It's a good question. Yes, it does. And also, I don't know how to describe it. The store has product always coming in, always going out, so you kind of can't get too sentimental about a particular watch and think about it. And it's
coming and going.
It's coming and going. It's also an expensive hobby. So the
legit.
The idea that yes, I could wear different things every other day or every day even. Yes, that definitely puts me in a better place.
Keeps you off of eBay at 3 in the morning.
Keeps me out of the overdrafting of the account. But I gotta say, I'm always excited because working at the store, you do meet other watch lovers, on a day-to-day basis,
You get to talk about something you're passionate about.
It's so fun to get somebody else excited about a watch if it's their first time, or for somebody to come in and talk to us about stuff that, funky stuff that they've found, on a trip to Japan, or like that they found online that you might not have heard of. Because like I think a real deal watch collectors, like especially the people who get really into some of these brands that aren't Patek and they aren't Rolex, they get obsessive. I mean, the chronographs, the Omegas. I mean, I've heard tale of there's in Tokyo, there's one store that has only Omegas from 1965 to 1985. And if people know about, that's like, and there's like 500 watches in that store. And
I'm going to Japan.
And I would love to go to that.
Osaka, here we come.
But also one of these things that's like a hole in the wall, and it's like people who just have the passion for extremely niche and particular things. So I really
does that store have a website?
I've got to find it. I'll find it for you.
With that.
Yeah, I've got to find it for you.
I do tend to buy a lot out of the JDM.
Yeah.
But my collecting prowess is a bit more modern vintage to modern, but not super brand new.
Sure.
Like 19. Like my Porsche design, other than my Dirty Dozen watches, the Porsche designs, which were made from 72 onwards, up until about 2010.
Yeah, sure.
That's my range.
That's a good era.
I have a couple newer pieces, but that's my level of comfort. And
sure.
I would love to see you guys do maybe a little more of that era, because that modern vintage it's such a sweet spot for me, I find.
The store at the moment, I agree. I love that era as well. The store, I think, kind of focuses between the 1920s to the 1980s. And when you talk about 60s and 70s era or beyond, I think Rolex, Datejust, and Day-Dates had such a hold on the culture. It was the watch for the C-class types, or even the people who want their first watches. And so we, I think, more than anything, our bread and butter is the Rolex Datejust, the 1601s, the 1603s, the 1803s.
I got one of those from you guys.
Yeah, and those are always beautiful pieces, and there's always something different about them too. The dials having
dial nuances,
underline on the dial, or the long E's, or sometimes like a roulette date wheel stuff. So there's always something interesting to find within a watch that I feel like they did not change that design for 40 years. So
fairly. I mean, with the exception of the addition of the quick set, which I've got a couple that are not quick set, and I do not advocate for watch winders.
Yes.
I want a watch winder for that. You know what I like about the store is you guys could fix the weird stuff. Like on this trip, I had like 5 watches needing for repair. I was like, I'm going out to LA. I don't need to ship these to John. I'll drop them off. And you guys sorted me out on that.
Absolutely.
Very fair pricing. Like my Dur, you guys fixed. Love that watch.
Sure.
My Leonidas, and I haven't covered my Leonidas chronograph yet on the channel. I'm going to, but you guys sorted that. But if you're going to play in vintage, you need a watchmaker who can handle that stuff, because you can't take it to the mall.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, you need...
love that.
Yeah, we're lucky enough to have a couple of watchmakers, one on site and one off site, who have both worked in the industry for 40 plus years. Yeah. And I think it's very hard. We get watches shipped in from all over the world. I think because of this thing is that it's a dying art in a way.
They're not backfilling watchmakers.
Yeah,
it's just certainly not at scale like they used to.
Yeah, so it's an extremely complicated process to disassemble a watch, assemble a watch, hundreds of components,
and then finding parts.
Yes, and then finding parts, and then part unavailability, because now you're talking about watches that are 100 years old, or
near enough.
Yeah, it's hard to find those things. So yes, if you're going to get into collecting vintage, there's a couple of brands that I might stay away from, but I think that like for the most part, there are a lot of parts available, and there are things. Yeah,
you got to know where to get some.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we're constantly getting parts from all over. I mean, there's tons of places in downtown LA. There's buildings basically with whole floors like dedicated to these different kinds of like watch parts suppliers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
I've only been on the ground level down there.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so there are places like that, but you know, we're constantly getting parts from all over the world as well, things getting shipped in. You know, it's fun because you can go down the rabbit hole, and I think a lot of people who buy vintage will also buy, if they love a watch, they'll buy multiple versions of the watch because they need.
I don't know what you're talking about, Danny.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, not just the variety, but also it's always great to, you know, have
Spare parts.
have a friend who can, you might be able to, you know, use one to another.
So Dan, the band Danny, time to be talking about grails.
Right.
If you could press a button and have one watch from whenever, wherever, whomever, and it was just plopped on wrist, what is this driver doing? Oh my gosh, Beverly Hills, get your act together. What would that one watch be, sir?
I think we talked about this before. It's like there's so many. There's so many grails. But if I had to push a button,
one.
Yeah, just one. It'd probably be the big red Daytona. Of course, this is just a. It's the Grail of Grail.
That?
I can't remember off the top of. I think it's either a 62, 64, 62, 65, or it might be a 62, 39. There's one of these reference numbers where it's black. It's very similar to the one I have here, actually. Yeah. The reverse Panda dial, but it has large red Daytona over the. Bottom.
The sub-dial.
Yeah, over the bottom sub-dial.
You'll send me a photo so I can pop it in. That sounds rather gorge.
That is a beautiful piece, 60s, 70s era. Yeah. You know, everybody knows about the Paul Newman and this. And I'm not even a Rolex guy, I wouldn't say.
What do you reckon?
I think it's the size for a chronograph at that era. It's a 38 millimeter. The dial. I mean, I love the dial configuration.
So
black and white is quite nice.
150K, 250K.
Probably in that. Yeah, I might need to sell a couple more paintings and a couple more watches to.
Got to sell some art.
Yeah, yeah.
Got to move some art, brother.
Move some inventory. But you know, also the 80s era Royal Oak. This all steel Royal Oak when they were still the 36 millimeter before they started blowing the size up.
Before they went to the jumbo.
Before I went to the jumbo, that size is so comfortable on the wrist. I've had a friend who had one, and they're so slim and it feels so nice on the wrist, and it wears very well. Right. But yeah, you can talk about this all day. Also, it changes, but if it's you know, depending on the day.
I almost bought the Bulova version of the Royal Oak.
I know the one.
Which doesn't have a special name. I can't remember the reference number, but there was one popped, new old stock, was never worn, gold plated, but looked great.
Right.
And he wanted $2,500 for it. Eventually, he's actually at $2,800.
Yeah.
And I'm like, seriously, this was a $300 watch 30 years ago.
Sure.
I tried to get him down to $2,000. Right. Sure enough, he didn't go for it, and someone closed him at $2,500.
Oh,
so
wow. Okay. Yeah.
Is it worth it? No. But find me another. I have this weird watch fantasy where a lost diary of Gerald Genta shows up, and there's an entry, "Dear Diary, showed my stopside watch to Bulova today. They didn't like it. I'm gonna go see Pete at AP tomorrow, see if he digs it. We haven't had lunch in a while."
Right.
And then those Bulovas will skyrocket.
Yes.
Because there is that rumor. I think it's just a rumor, but it would be a funny one.
Yeah.
All right, so we covered your journey, we covered your art. Closing down the episode, thank you so much for your time, dude.
Thank you, D.
And so what do you want to say? What's going on at the store? Do you have any upcoming things?
Take a look at our website. If you're in LA, come visit us. We're Second Time Around Watch Company. We're in Beverly Hills. It's a great store if you want to talk watches, and we don't push on the sales too much. We like to talk to people and like build kind of long relationships. Because
build that rapport.
There's a ton of customers who are repeat buyers. John used to say when I got hired that like 80% of our buyers are repeat buyers. I don't know 80%, but like it's probably up there in the 60s. Yeah. I mean, you know, people get into watches when I think. It's when they have a great experience, and I think it can be a bit of a scary experience. I think, you know,
definitely
through pop culture and through different YouTube channels that you'll see about the negotiation tactics and the way people and the way that
haggle.
Yeah, the haggling, and people are afraid to haggle. People, don't know what things are valued at. They don't want to get a bad deal. They don't want to be ripped off. And we try to be upfront and personal and personable, and we really try to give great service. And then
plus 2 years warranty.
2-year warranties. Yeah, I mean, and also I love chatting. Chatting watches with people, so I found that it's been great that
great therapy.
Yeah,
it's a watch therapy.
It's a way to get your head off of other things. But I think when I first started working there, the demographic of the store was definitely people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, which I think was a holdover from like the real. The pop of vintage in the 70s and 80s, especially in Los Angeles. But, so many young people are into it now. And it's very exciting to see. So you get 20, 30, 40-year-old people. It's very exciting to see that demographic get really...
Coming along on the ride?
Getting really excited. Because just the internet has been a huge help, and Instagram has been a huge help for people to find out about new stuff and funky stuff and old ads and
all that stuff. I love that. I love that.
So people just usually want to come in and ask my opinion. Have I ever seen this? Does this look right? Tell me all you know about whatever, like Omegas from this era or a Rolex Datejust from this era. So we try to just provide good service and really just talk watches.
Well, you heard it here. Yeah. Dr. Danny is open for business. Watch therapy.
Yes.
Second time around watchcompany.com, Beverly Hills. Check them out if you are in LA or the LA basin. And want to say many thanks, brother, for making the time. John, thank you for letting me kidnap one of your workers again. I love doing it. Gotta get back. He's on the clock. I gotta get him back to the shop. But thank you for coming along on the ride, and thank you for coming along on the ride in this wonderful, beautiful hobby of ours. We will catch you in the next one. Peace. If you'd like to support the channel, head over to hobbyofhours.com. We've got artwork, coffee mugs, hats, t-shirts, and even a watch book. 1001 Watch Designs, Volume 1. Over 1,000 designs in here. Steampunk, super futuristic, kaleidoscope, even super real ones, watches that you could probably put on your wrist today. It's a great way to support the channel. Thanks for coming along on the ride.